Okay, we've been looking in the CSF post bag and we've got some letters to Dear CSF. So we thought we'd go through those and see if any of these problems ring any bells with you guys and discuss what we might do if we were in that position. So first one out of the bag says, hello CSF. My fundraisers want access to our supporters file to do a big mail shot for donations. I don't think we should do that. But the fundraising department are very insistent and they have the chief exec on side. Can you help, please? So what do you reckon, Brian? You've got the chief exec and the fundraising department ganging up on you and they want to play fast and loose with the fundraisers database.
Well, I think our caller is right to be worried. There are really strict rules around supporter details, what you can keep, how you store it, how you use it, and you are up against the big battalions. You've got the fundraising and you've got the chief exec, and they both have big sticks, and they both tend to wave them around because your security and you're stopping them doing exactly what the charity was put there for 50, 60 years ago. So I think you need support. There's also got a big stick, and I would look at, I would go to the Information Commissioner's office, go to their website. The ICO, they're responsible for upholding information rights, and they produce several really good guides that'll help you in this suggestion with this situation. So I suggest visit their website, look on there, and look at DPA, Data Protection Act, look at GDPR, get everything from there, from their site, and then using those guides, you can work out. Go and see the fundraising department, the head of fundraising. Go to the chief exec and say these are what the rules are. Because without that backup, it's just you saying, "I don't think we should do that." You need somebody behind you, like I say, somebody else with a big stick. Take those along to the fundraisers. Take those along to the chief exec and say, "This is what we should be doing." And what you want to do is against it. And I would keep the guides handy because you can guarantee that in 6 months, there'll be a change in the fundraising department. There'll be a new project manager sticking their head up and saying, you know what we really want to do? We want to send all of our supporters an email and ask them for donations. This will come round again. So keep the guides handy.
That's really good advice. And as you say, to get somebody independent, to lay out the rules of the game, I guess is a really good idea. It's just so tempting, I guess, for fundraisers to say, but they're our supporters, they won't mind helping us. But of course, these days, it's a very different game. So I guess we can put the links to the ICO and links to the GDPR in the comments below. But if people who are listening and watching to this have got any good ideas, then add things in the comments and we'll see if we can help someone solve a little problem. So here's one. Hi, at our charity, we keep details of our supporters on file so that we can contact them at a later date for a further donation. Any advice on how we should manage this? I think I'm going to jump in straight away, Brian, and say, probably not a good idea, but what do you reckon?
I would agree. This is definitely not a good idea. There are strict rules around supporter data. You can't keep the data of someone who gave you a donation 3 years ago, and on the off chance that you might contact them and say, would you like to leave us some money in your will?
No, I guess it wouldn't be the first time we've heard of people keeping payment card details alongside details of supporters, just in case they want to go back and charge them for another donation. And of course, that's a bit of a no-no as well, isn't it? Especially with PCID.
That's illegal as well. Yeah.
So forget the card details, forget the data just in case, and review your retention policies, I guess.
Yep, most definitely.
Help. Our IT department have lost several thousand items of data. Management are looking at me. What should I do?
I think we have several points to consider here. Can you restore from backup just to get the data back? We are assuming there are backups. Everybody takes backups, so they should do. When you say lost, what does that mean? Does that mean deleted in error, or could the data be actually taken and outside the charity? And does the data include personal data as defined in the GDPR and the Data Protection Act? If the data is really lost, I would consult, we said this before, the Information Commissioner's Office. They're the ones you have to say, you have to tell. And I think it's better to go to the better for the ICO to say, I don't need to know that, than for the ICO to find out later and say, you should have told us, and you should have told us this when it first happened. If the data does include personal information, name, address, email address, there is more, but they're the biggest. You should advise the people concerned and apologise for losing it, and tell them what steps you're taking to recreate it, and what steps you're taking to get it back, if that is pertinent. If you can restore from backups, do it. If you can't, recreate the data as best you can. And then address the original issue. How did it happen? Who did it? Could it happen again? You're not trying to you're not indulging in a head slapping competition. You're not trying to find the techie who pressed the wrong button and slap him around the back of the head, or her. But you just want to make sure that whatever happened doesn't happen again. Maybe you could introduce a process where two people are required to delete data. You could do that. If you haven't got a change management process to prevent untested software being run in the live system, you definitely need one, because there are all sorts of stories in the press where often you hear that a large network has gone down. Often it's a bank or it's something like that. And when you dig down, you find out that somebody changed the system, the live system, during the day, and it wasn't tested, and then there was no back out plan. So you need that. And once you've restored the data, if you recreated the data, take another backup just in case. So you can say, as of this date, we're okay, and we can carry on from there.
And I think that's really good advice, actually. I was always very nervous when I heard of people saying, oh yeah, we're just going to delete these files. I think you're right. It's good to have that two key principle. So, make sure it's part of your change control process. And if there's a slight shadow of a doubt, then take a backup first before you delete it. And then if it was an error, then at least you got a chance of restoring it. And as you say, if that's an intentional deletion, then that's one thing, and you can control that through change control process. If it's unintentional, then ask yourself how that can happen, and why is it so easy to delete important data? Of course, the other scenario is that somebody copied it onto a portable drive and taken it on the holidays with them. Wouldn't be the first time we've heard of that, would it?
No. Although that does tend to be copied rather than taken away. So the chances are you wouldn't know that's gone anyway.
No, and you are, of course, assuming that people know the difference between copy and paste and cut and paste.
Yeah.
So good luck trying to find your data, and I hope you got some backups and you got the stuff back. Do let us know, and enter your ideas in the comments below, and we'll compile that in good sense and try and put that together and make sure that the data stays safe and secure where it should be, with sat on your server. Dear CSF, the supplier of our new finance system wants remote access to the system so that they can support and fix problems. They want open access all the time and don't see any need for any change control. The finance director is insisting we give them access, but it seems to me like this is just an open door to a critical system and to our network. So what's best practice, and what do you think we should do?
Right. Well, let's first of all just work out exactly what they're talking about here. If the supply has permanent unmanaged support of your systems, they'll be able to make amendments to software and data and move over your network to other systems, because they'll have admin rights which they'll need to make changes to the system. Remote access for IT support, it's a good way to save costs, but you've got to manage it. You can't just have a techie that you don't know working this systems for you. There's no guarantee that the person who's doing it even knows what they're doing. It could be a job that's given to the techie in the office, the trainee, because it's simple. We've installed it. Go and look after that. And you definitely don't want an untrained temp wandering through your financial records. So you need a process that gives the supplier access when you request it. And I think that's the important point. And in a manner that allows you to see what the supplier is doing, and that allows you to stop that access when you no longer need it. So you've got a problem, you call the supplier says, okay, I can fix that, let me onto the system. You open the door, so to speak, you let them in, you watch what they're doing, and when they're finished, you let them out and you close the door again, as if they were on site. That's what you do if they were there. Now, if the supplier is unable or unwilling, and it's possible that they don't want to do it because they don't have enough staff to come out and see you, to work in this way, you need to get them to visit your site to support the finance system. They've got to come here. So I would advise the finance director that unmanaged remote access will tell him it will allow the supplier to make changes to the finance system, which is the one that he's responsible for. That's in the title. That's a given, which will probably include creating invoices and approving payments, because that's part of the deal. If you've got admin rights, there's nothing to stop you setting up new accounts. You can set up an account to create an invoice. You can set up a second account to approve the invoice, and the money goes out through the door, because that's the power that they will have. And I would get the finance director, I would point out that they have to sign off the accounts at some point as accurate, given that somebody else has been wandering through them and could have made changes. And with that level of unmanaged access, you don't know what they've done. I would keep hammering that point. Would the trustees and the auditors be happy with this? And if, in addition, if they've got access to personal information, which they will have to a certain extent because it's a financial system, so it's going to be names and addresses of staff, names and addresses of suppliers, possibly names and addresses of supporters, if they've got a direct debit paying in. These are personal details which the Information Commissioner, we keep coming back to the Information Commissioner and all of these calls, which the Information Commissioner is interested in and takes a great interest in. So I would come back, I would explain it to the finance director, and in my view, you either have a managed remote access or a personal visit. Although I've still got a little flag at the back of my head that says, why are they playing around with a live system? They should be doing this on a test system, but that's my personal view with the change control in place. So it's either managed access or a personal visit. If the I would protect myself by saying, if the finance director insists on letting them go ahead, I want his decision in writing with a wet signature on it. And then you lock that away, because when it all goes pear-shaped, and I reckon it will, when it all goes pear-shaped, everybody will point at you and say, you're in charge of security. How did you let this happen?
Yeah.
And that's when you produce your get out of jail free card, and you say, I didn't let it happen. I pointed it out to the finance director, and here's his letter saying, no, don't worry about that. I know what I'm doing. That's
really good advice, isn't it? And you've got to get all your ducks in a row there. And that analogy of the personal visit, why does it have to be remote? Why would it happen at any time of day or night? You would expect somebody to come in. It's just like the plumber, isn't it, coming to your house? They're going to come at the house, you're going to knock the door, you're going to make sure they do the job, and then see them out of the house again. You're not just going to leave the front door open and say, yeah, pop around, mate, anytime you like, yeah, day or night, it's no problem. I mean, the analogy just...
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's a bit of common sense, and sometimes it's easy to lose track of the basics just because it's an information system. But yeah, I think you've got to be firm on that one. And of course, as you say, trustees and the auditors. The auditors could not be happy with that situation, surely. And if they are, then maybe it's time to have a chat about that as well. So yeah,
a coffee with the auditor is never you know, that sort of relationship with an auditor is never wasted. Quick coffee and a, did you know that they're talking about doing this, but you didn't hear it from me?
Yeah, I think
conversation always paid. Yeah,
yeah, that's really good. I think the your internal audit people should be your best friend, among your best friends. So yeah, time to sort of look at that and tackle those issues. And basically, as you said, it's your job as the information security person to keep that data safe and sound and with some integrity. It is, after all, the I in the middle of C, I, and A. So yeah, confidential, integrity, and available. So yeah, it's the #1 rule. So hope that helps. Hope that sorts it out with the finance director. If not, tell him to give us a ring and we'll sort him out. So we'll leave it there. So, dear CSF, I'm the security manager of a medium-sized charity. My IT director has been watching the news and wants me to produce a critical incident response plan. Any idea how to start?
Right. Let's start by explaining that a critical incident is anything that impacts on the ongoing business of the charity. So power cut, physical loss of equipment because someone's stolen something, even the extreme transport problems preventing the majority of staff getting to work, fire in the premises. That's the sort of thing that usually comes under the heading of a critical incident. So you need to have a response plan that covers all possible incidents to manage them. I'd stop at a meteor strike because no one can deal with that. If a meteor hits, I wouldn't worry about an incident plan because we're not going anywhere. You need a team to manage this because although you've been asked to do it, you cannot do this alone. So I would suggest you make up an incident management team of senior managers to help you with the next step. Have a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets with incidents. So you have a column of how each of the incidents, a column of how each is to be managed, and you need some sort of an arithmetical scale. And I've only ever seen this written down as pictures. And I would suggest something like you're on a scale of 1 to 5, so that's low to high, to work out the likelihood and the impact of each. And then you take the result of that is if you take the likelihood times the impact, that gives you an interesting answer because you can have destruction by fire, which is an impact of 5, pretty high. The likelihood to have it could be 1 or 2, so you end up with 5 or 10. A power cut, which is an impact of 1 or 2 from the destruction, but the likelihood is higher. So that still gives you 5 or 10. So you need to prioritize the different incidents in terms of how likely they are to happen and the impact they're going to have on you. The way I've done this in the past is to say likelihood times impact times likelihood and work on it from there. And that gives you a number which gives you a bigger number for something which is more destructive. You're going to have to play around with this and you're going to have to decide in conjunction with the incident management team exactly what constitutes the likelihood and the rating. Okay. Having worked that out, you start at the highest number and you work down to the lowest, and that's where you use your incident management team, and you work that down to address each potential incident, so that you know who's going to deal with them. Because you need other columns to say, so who's going to do it, how much is it going to cost, what are you going to do to mitigate this incident. So if, for example, we're talking about a fire in the building, what can you do to mitigate that? You can keep flammable material locked away, so there's no danger of that. Get it off site if you can. You can make sure you've got enough fire extinguishers. You can make sure that you have trained fire marshals. You can train people in how to use fire extinguishers. You can have a fire trial once every 3 months, once every 6 months, to see how long everybody gets out, and show them where all the fire doors are. I mean, that's always useful. There's a fire. How do I get out? I don't know. No one's ever shown me which door I should use. So all of those things will be part of your control column for each of these incidents. And then what is useful is to have another column. When I have, so for this risk, this is how I'm going to manage it. And once I have instituted those controls to manage it, those management controls, what will the result be? Will that bring that risk number down, or will it remain the same? And some will remain the same because you can't fix them, and some will come right down because all the steps you're taking really mitigate that risk. You need to meet up with the team regularly, review the progress that everybody's making on the risk, sign each one off as it comes down, and keep that up to date, because some risk will be going. If, for example, one of your risks is, I'm trying to think of something that's going to disappear. If you move buildings, for example, and the building you were in was very old and rickety and it was a fire hazard, and you move to a brand new state-of-the-art building, then the first risk is gone because you're not in the same building. On the other hand, new risks will come along. So it's not, it's what I'm trying to say is this isn't a dusty thing you put on the shelf and say, I've got a plan, that's it. You need to know how you're going to deal with these and go through it. That addresses each of the risks as you find them. It's not a bad idea to look beyond that and say, if one of these risks, for example, is a fire, I'll be prepared for that. If one of the risks is a loss of data, I'll be prepared for that. So that's your next stage. Lots of columns on a spreadsheet, lots of arithmetic to play around with, but at least it will centralize and focus your mind onto what needs to be done, and you can show others that show others your progress. And particularly if you want, you're going to need a team together to do this. You need to show them the progress. Otherwise, they're going to say, "Well, I'm a senior manager. Why should I waste my time sitting here once a month?" But it's just you saying, "Well, things are a bit busy, you know. It's risky old business out there. You need to get it down on your spreadsheet."
Yeah, I think it's one of those perhaps unenviable tasks, unless you can make it a bit of fun. But to actually sit down in a room full of people and try and put those numbers against those risks is sometimes nothing to look forward to. And I do sometimes think that perhaps it's better to make a stab at it yourself and to let people then argue the toss with you. And then at least you've got something down, as you say, you have a schedule of potential incidents because, you know, most likely it's going to be a fire in the waste paper basket rather than a bolt out of the blue. So it's about getting things in proportion, and as an information security professional, you'll be able to understand where your risks and what your risk landscape looks like. I think the interesting thing once you've done that then is to say, okay, what's the response going to be? Because you're going to need that team of people around you. So yeah, how are you going to deal with it, and what's the plan? So you know, get the comms person on board, the media person, because you may want to put something out to the press and the media. Get somebody in charge on board, because if you have to evacuate the building, you don't know, trying to decide whose shout it is to say everybody out. So it's about saying, okay, now I've got a good handle on what the incidents might be, and then saying, okay, and this is how we would deal with them. And those are the interesting bits, and try and get everybody together there, and don't forget to get some deputies as well, because it's no good having an incident response team with a carefully thought out plan if half of your people aren't there. So you need to be able to pull that team together very quickly. And I think the other sort of question I would sort of tack on to the end of that is, would you advise maybe trialing those incident response plans out? So, you know, call a a trial incident and just see how it goes. Is that a good idea?
Yes, yes, we did this at the charity I was with, and we made up an incident, and that sounds as if it's thrown together, but it was really well worked out. That we had a potential case of Legionnaire's disease in the building, and where our plan involved phoning heads of department, involved phoning the chief exec, involved phoning people, we actually involved them in it. So when the plan says now phone the chief exec and tell him what's happening, they said, okay, we'll phone the chief exec. Here's his number, and he was in on it. So we rang him and did what the plan said, inform him what the problem was, inform him what the chances are of it blowing up and being bigger, or how we're going to deal with it, just bring him up to date. And as I say, for the sake of a 10-minute break in his day, it made it more real, and we could bring it down. Although you know that you're sitting in an office and it is a test, you can at least get part way into it.
Yeah, make it real and practice, I think, is the take the opportunity to give it a run through. So we hope that's helped. So happy planning, happy risk assessment, and when you know what you're shooting at, then make sure you've got a plan to deal with it, and get your critical incident team around you, and know what you're doing before you have to figure it out on the ground. So it's always good to have a plan in your back pocket. Hope that helps.
Yep.
We've got an email here from one of our members. We have a very energetic fundraising department, they say. So collectors on the street, regular updates to the charity website, and donation websites created by volunteers and supporters. And it's these sites that are a real problem. The creators are well-meaning and really want to support us, but their technical skills and personal data and security knowledge are a bit sketchy. And I've been pointing out the most worrying issues. So donations to an unsupported body, nobody knows who they are, collecting personal data without an SSL certificate on the website, no cookie statements, no check of the code for security. But I'm told not to worry, as it's only supporters and we don't want to discourage them. Worst of all, when there's a technical problem, IT are expected to drop everything and fix it. Our fundraisers have the support of senior management, who think that any objections raised by security and IT are simply just getting in the way. What can I do about this?
Right, okay, let's start where to start. Everything that is mentioned is wrong, and it's asking for trouble for the charity sooner or later. If you tried raising the issue with fundraising and senior management without success, I would suggest that you do the following. Make a matrix of the issues that you raised, put against each the risk to the charity, add to which the rules and regulations being ignored, GDPR, DPA, cookie regulations, PCI. Submit the matrices to senior management and ask them to sign off on the risks with a personal email or a wet signature. Simple as that. Because if they're seeing there's nothing wrong with it, you need to demonstrate what is wrong with it, and be prepared to explain what GDPR is and why it's relevant in this case or whatever. And then point out, say to them, okay, if you're willing to sign off on this, I will back off and leave it, because my job is to give you advice. It's not my job to storm into IT and pull the plug on something. But once they've signed off on that, also point out that you're going to keep a copy of that. So when it does go wrong and the data gets lost or we get hacked or whatever happens, it's their fault and they took the business risk. Because not only will there be the issues of possibly hacking to the system, possibly loss of data of personal information, you've also got the point that there's a reputational risk to the charity. Because if this website is out there, anything that goes wrong with it is going to be in the public domain. and things will be picked up and will be tweeted so fast your head will spin. And the last thing you want is for the charity to be sitting in the middle going, what happened? How did this happen? While the tweets are backing up, complaining that this charity isn't worth supporting because they don't know how to look after your data and they don't know how to look after their money, so there's no point giving them any more. And most charities will not recover from that. So you definitely need to do something. And in my opinion, it's this personal thing of pointing out to the people who are responsible but don't realize it, the IT managers, the managers and so on, senior management, they're responsible for it, even though they may not be taking that seriously. Pointing it out to them can often do something that you just standing there shouting, it's not right, it's not going to reach.
Sometimes it's a thankless task, isn't it? You're a voice, and it's like a voice in the wilderness. But you do have to sort of call it out, because I guess this is the political side of the information security job, isn't it? You've either got to take a stance, or you have to use your skills to explain and to persuade people that sometimes there's a better way, and find an easy and right way to do things. So make it difficult to do the wrong thing and make it easy to do the right thing. But I think it is sort of unique in charities, isn't it, where everybody is wanting to help and do the very best for the cause. So having people go off and create their own websites, because it's very easy to do these days, isn't it? Anybody can create a website, but there are no controls around that. There are no guidelines. So you end up with this plethora of stuff out there on the internet that is representing your charity, it's representing your brand, and trying to keep a lid on it. It's like the proverbial herding cats problem, isn't it? How do you herd the cats? And sometimes you've got to stand up and say, hang on a minute, we may have an issue here, or there may be a better way of tackling this.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think, as you say, Brian, you've got to pull together that matrix of issues, go through them one by one, but you have to explain that and get people to understand why there may be an issue, and help them do the right thing. So if people want to create websites, then maybe put together a resource pack with all the right branding and good guidelines on how to do a website, and give them space perhaps on your own web server so that people can have that independent expression. But an unenviable task, and I think one that is fairly unique to charities. I don't think you'd see people working for a big brand in the private sector going off and creating their own websites to promote the brand. It just doesn't hang together, but I think it's something we're blessed with in the charity sector, and it can be a double-edged sword. So and we hope that helps. Yeah. And if people have other experiences of that and how to deal with it, then do put them in the comments, and let's see if we can pull that together and get some help for our members there. So thanks for that question, very deep question, and one that I think is unique to the charity sector. Right, that's us done.
That's us done. I could go get another tea, because this has been empty since about question 4.
More tea required.